May I invite my Lord Bishop Matthew Hassan Kukka.
Your Excellencies, Mr. President and the Vice President and our brother, friend, the former President of Kenya, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that many of you may already be nervous as to what Bishop Kukka is going to say. I feel like Miriam Makeba, the late Miriam Makeba. She said that every time I stand up to speak, they will say, here comes the troublemaker. But President Uhuru Kenyatta, I really want to thank you. I mean, your most eloquent speech struck a chord. And had I received a copy of your speech earlier, I think that even that alone should have broadened the scope of our conversation. As you can see, the Sultan and I are different. He's taller than me. He has a much more regal appearance. And he's spoken to you about the caliphate and its wonderful values. I'm a citizen of Nigeria living in Sokoto, but I'll come from a slightly different perspective, from the point of view of constitutionalism and constitutional governance and how all this fit into religion. Because I think the temptation for many of us is to assume that somehow religion is a problem. And I think the former president's speech made the point very clear that religion, just like any other form of identity, whether it's ethnicity, religion, gender, the real problem is when these categories are left unattended to. It is then that they provoke problems. So I really think that we must appreciate the fact that all the values and the temptations, the trials that the people of Kenya have gone through. In summary, what struck me very powerfully was the idea of the tyranny of numbers, the tyranny of victory. And if I may add, the arrogance and the triumphalism that tends to characterize victory, and how dangerous all these are. Because numbers are important, but they're only important up to a point. And the real challenge is what you do and how you aggregate these numbers for national development. And I think Nigeria and Africa in general must wake up to the threat that is posed by the emergence of what you call illiberal democracy. 20 years ago, this word was not talked about, but now it is in the vocabulary of political science, that there is a resurgence of democracies that look like democracies but don't work like democracies. They conduct elections, they have judiciaries, they have political parties, but in the final analysis, they are a halfway house between the values of democracy and dictatorship and tyranny. And I think that the guest speaker has given us all the ingredients we require to be able to walk through the challenges. And I saw the Vice President-elect smiling. He's somebody I already know, and I appreciate the depth of his intellect and his capacity to process a lot of the issues that are on the table. There are many people, including Christians, who will be disappointed that Bishop Kukka is standing here, because there's been a lot has been made out of the fact that we are dealing with a Muslim set of people who have won the elections. What are the implications of this for Nigeria? And of course, with one side of our mouth, we also say as Nigerians that we want people to be able to govern us, who love us, who cherish us, and who understand the principles of the management of diversity. Now, we will not be nervous, and we really should not be nervous about the future. Not only because it is in the hands of God, but I think that the greatest value, and I hope that this lecture that has been delivered by Uhuru Kenyatta, although unfortunately, sir, you've been in Nigeria twice, but we are not yet Uhuru. We are aspiring. We're not yet Uhuru yet. But I hope that it provides the incoming government with the texture, the material that it requires, because how to build a good society is not a complicated thing. It is not a complicated thing. And the principles and the question, because one of the things that the SGF said to me was also the fact that we'll be talking about the fact that as Nigerians, we are better together. Everybody knows that we are better together. But the first question to ask is, who are we? After 9/11, the American political scientists were asking the question, who are we? Because there was a problem in terms of who people are. And I think if you live in Nigeria, all of us know. And this is why those who listen to me will attest to the fact that I don't like to talk about religion, in part because I don't believe there is a religious problem. But somehow the Western media, the Nigerian media, and the political elite have assumed the fact that there is something between religions and that there is a conflict between religions. There is absolutely no conflict, between religions. I say to people, assuming, for example, we all have knives in our houses. Assuming you come back from work and your wife is in the kitchen, and she comes to welcome you with a knife in her back with which she's been slicing onions, you will have no problem entering the house. But if you had a fight with your wife before you left the house, and your husband comes back and knocks on the door, and you see your wife with a knife, you will pull back. So knives by themselves are not a problem. It's what you do with them. In the same way that, identities are not